Hey friends, it's Dimitri with Boschko Streetwear. Today I wanted to talk about 3 reasons why your clothing designs might not be selling well. And I just got back from the dentist, I was headed there and they gave me a call and like, hey, we had to reschedule it because the hygienist is not in. So I have some time to kill and I thought, why not make a video real quick in my car while I'm gonna go and run some errands. But anyways, there's kind of 3 main reasons that I've thought of over, running the clothing brand for several years as to why designs might not be selling well or why your audience is not receptive to it. So the 3 of them is that you might not be getting the appropriate attention that it needs. Your design might be good, but the execution is bad, or the design might be bad and it's too vague. So with the first part, the attention part, let's say that you have a pretty strong social media following, whether that be on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are gathering lots of attention. Twitter is a popular space. Your followers, basically, they translate into an audience that has a high potential of purchasing from your brand. And right now, obviously, that's an easy way for you to start and sell your clothing items. There's 2 things that could happen with this. The first one is that your audience size might not be large enough. You really need to go and work on building up your social media following so you can gather those eyes so that you have followers and fans that are constantly looking at your stuff, what you're posting, and they like what you put out. So you need to grow your social media first of all if you do not have a large enough audience. If you have only 1,000 followers, you need to make it a goal to get to 5,000. If you have only 5,000, you need to make it a goal to get to 10,000, and so on and so on. Because think about it, if you have a design and you have 10,000 followers versus 100,000 followers, even if that design was not the best, chances are you're gonna have a higher success of selling it to an audience of 100,000 pairs of eyes, right? So that's the way that you got to be thinking about that. It's very important that you put time and effort into that. It's kind of like I've mentioned this before, there's a trope of like a struggling artist and their artwork might be really good. They just don't have the audience and they haven't invested time. They're very tedious and laborious and often expensive time, invested into gathering an audience. On the flip side, you might have a large audience of real followers, never purchase fake followers and do all that. That's not going to get you anywhere, and that's short-term thinking. You might have a legitimate audience, but the social media companies might be throttling some of your posts and what you put out, or your social media strategy might be a little bit off. So your audience is still not seen, even though you have a large audience. For me, one problem that I struggle with is that sometimes Facebook and Instagram, they legitimately throttle my posts. Not all the time, but they do. And in a way, I also am shadow banned on the platform. If you type in my full name, it will not pop up on there, which is unfortunate. And I think I know the reasons why for that is because I've had some strikes on Instagrams. They've taken down posts before. When you're specifically from my page, when you're posting stuff that might be a little bit controversial in terms of like history, and I post firearms and all that kind of stuff and conflicts, not to necessarily promote that kind of stuff, but more like it's in line with my brand and Cold War history and all that kind of stuff. But the algorithm, it doesn't like that stuff. It doesn't want you to talk about certain things. It doesn't want you to show firearms and all that kind of stuff. So it will kick you out and throttle you at times. So you kind of have to be very clever, and I've found workarounds around that and stuff like that. And you have to self-censor some things and words. You have to be really careful. But that might also be a reason why you're struggling. Your social media strategy might be a little off, or you're physically being throttled by the companies, and you have to figure out alternative ways to gather that attention on the platform, regardless of the size. The second reason why your designs might not be selling well or getting enough attention is that your execution of the concept is incorrect. So that means that you might not have marketed well. maybe all you need to do is make a quick reel on Instagram or TikTok showcasing your design, and maybe, just make a 30-second to 1-minute video of that. Your design itself, maybe the concept is really good, but the way you designed it, the colors you used, the line work, the font or the typeface on the t-shirt, the design might be poorly done, but the concept itself is really, really good. And I've seen this played out all the time in brands. Some brands, they might reboot an old design that is really cool looking from the past. A lot of times companies, they'll reboot designs from the 80s and 90s, or certain cultural, historical topics, but it's just not designed well, and it's poorly executed, and just everything about the brand is a little bit off. So in that case, you might want to work on finding a really good designer, learning how to design stuff yourself, and that could be very difficult and time consuming. I think this one's kind of hard to pinpoint, because I think you kind of need an eye for design. You kind of have to have that eye, and it's even hard to describe it to people that do not have an eye for design and art. They're not artistic, which is why they're not artistic. They don't have, I wouldn't say it's a gene, it's just that feeling that they have about what, where to place certain things and what colors to use and how to design stuff so that it really is eye-catching and it pops out and it really just stands out. And yes, there is a scientific formula to this. There are design principles and stuff you can do to follow it, but having the eye for it and having that feeling really helps as well. So yeah, you can find a new artist or designer, and if you do that, you might change a good design that's poorly made into a great design that's and great concept. And then when you send that out to your market and get eyes on it, people will really like it, and they will purchase your t-shirt or hoodie or whatever you have going on. The last point for why your designs might be struggling, why you're not selling them, is that your concept overall might be too vague. This one is something I also see. Some people, they kind of try to pull concepts from their own personal life that no one really can latch onto or understand, or their ideas are way too abstract and out there. But that doesn't mean that you can't make some kind of abstraction. There's many brands that make abstract designs and kind of have these very strange, weird concepts and stuff, but it's designed very well, and they do have a large audience, and there is at least one point of reference in that design where someone could be like, okay, I kind of understand what they're trying to do. That is the important part in your designs. You need reference points, specifically stuff that's cultural or relevant, historical, that kind of stuff. You need something where people can understand the message that you're trying to portray, and that way, people can latch onto it and they make it part of their persona, right? Because brands are essentially just full of messaging and themes and sub-themes and stuff that's relevant to the culture, whether it's back then or right now. And that's, you're trying to find your niche, and that's who you're targeting to as well, people that are interested in that niche. And if your concept and your overall design is way too vague, people are just not going to understand it, and they're not going to want to purchase your design or be a part of your brand. And some people do that. I've seen this many times. People like little brands that start up, and they have a very vague idea based on their childhood or some kind of experience they had, and it's not broad enough where people can understand exactly what they're trying to do, even though they have good intentions, or they might have maybe they have a good overall concept, but the way they execute it also, like I mentioned earlier, is not good. And all three of these factors can also be playing on you, and you just have to fight them constantly. You have to think about, okay, whether or not, is my design good? but am I not getting enough eyeballs on it? Is this too vague and people can't understand this? Or can I make this design much better because the execution's probably not the best? Those are 3 main reasons why your designs might be struggling, why you're not selling as many shirts or hoodies or whatever as you thought you would. And I think that if you pinpoint exactly what's going on in your brand, you can pivot, because that's all you're doing in business. Whatever business you are in, if you see a problem, stop and you pivot. See a problem, stop, pivot, 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 pivot. You're just pivoting yourself to whatever is going to make your brand grow and be successful in an appropriate manner and for a long term. So yeah, if you guys got any value of this video, or if you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.